Hello and welcome back to this edition of Daily Actives brought to you by Bootleg Macro. I am Dustin. I'm going to explain to you why this is a ugly look for Apple. If you can't tell already, things have changed. Now, the most important thing to me when I look at a chart like this, especially something that goes back 9 months, because this is August right here, and this is all the way back in November of 2022, is the price action. Now, the fortunate thing about this tool that I built for myself is essentially what you can see here is the past 2 days have seen blue lettering with a white background. That means that Apple is actually 3 standard deviations below its 23-day average and way outside of its probabilistic range right now. When you see that there's an increase in volume, that's quite concerning because that actually shows a different characteristic in the overall market itself of Apple. This goes true for any specific market, not just the individual market of Apple. This could be for an index, could be for an ETF, could be for an options market, whatever it is. When prices move like this, that is a very ugly sign. There's a lot of volume behind it because that shows sentiment shift. In essentially one day, which is today, we now have the 5 day, which is below the 20-day moving average, and the price, which is below the 5 day moving average. Not a good signal, not a good look. If there were any positives to take out of this, it would say that we are 23, or we're actually $13 below the 23-day average, and that's 3 standard deviations below that average as well, which is quite frightening. And when you look here at volatility fell off a rock the same way. It went from being very, very high when it was about 8, 9 to falling all the way down to 5 very quickly. The one hopeful thing that we could say, because volatility, it looks like, has been falling since the middle of July. The one positive thing that we could say is that hopefully we're about to bottom here and we're going to get a big explosion of volatility, and it's going to end up being to the upside. Now, with the first and most important thing, and I'm going to look at this differently than I would for any other stock because this is the most important stock in the US stock market. It's the largest one. We're going to go ahead and look. God, even that candle from last week looks hideous. That's actually probably from today. What we're going to look at is we're actually going to look at the overall. So the sentiment indicator, very negative. It is at 47%, not to be surprising. The volume is returning, not to be surprising. What I want to see here is I want to see this volatility. So the volatility here is really bad. And the reason why is because if you're watching my other videos, especially if you look at the Palantir video from today or the Tesla video from today, I call out their volatility and why they're actually quite bullish for me. Because when I look, the volatility in Apple has been falling since the beginning of July. The correlation also started falling in the middle of July or the beginning of July to help it as the volatility was falling, the price could just rise. Now what you see is that there's a huge drop down in volatility, like a huge step down in volatility today versus the other days. And you see that the correlation is essentially rising very quickly, which means that the price wants to go down right now. Like the overall market of Apple wants to go down right now. And that's something I haven't seen in a long time, which actually makes me think completely differently about the market than I have in a long, long time. I'm going to look at the weekly here. And here's the reason why. Like maybe we use these prices of like 169, 171, 176, maybe like this little area. I'd say like 169 is probably the thing. This is where you might find support in Apple. I'm not sure. I'm not really a chartist. I'm just trying to look at what might possibly happen from the past. It does seem as though the character of Apple has changed based after their earnings. Looks like their earnings did something to either a big shareholder or some sense of the market, or people blew up or something. All I can say is that we haven't seen, this is probably a divergence here, where you saw that the bullishness peaked on the 3rd of July. It slightly peaked recently in August, but it did do nothing different. And if you look back in that time period when we were looking in July, the price rose slightly, but the indicator really was going down. That's a terrifying look for Apple. The only thing I can say is that if we look at the trade range, that trade range on the daily is just kind of uncomfortable because the volatility has been so tight, the range has been so tight, and Apple's just been hugging the very top of it, that now that we see that it's broken below and we see this volatility is going to start breaking out most likely, especially now that we're below the trade range and that the correlation with the price is actually starting to go up. What we're probably going to see is a breakout in volatility and the correlation is going to dive negative once this turns. And what that's going to do is probably make this thing fall aggressively fast. I don't know what the price is going to be. It looks like on the weekly, because this is what we have to judge it on. The weekly is at 141 on Apple. They are at a price of, the top of the range was 209. I don't suspect that that's going to happen. Suspecting that what they've shown is that there is a difference in change. Let's go back and look at the weekly on Apple, or the daily, I mean. What the thing that we notice just from the price change is that now we're down on the 1 month, or the 1 day, the 5 day, the 15 day, and the 1 month. We've now turned on the 1 month. We now have on the short term, intermediate term, and longer term, a go short, go short, go short. That's very negative. On the trend indicator, we're going to flip to bearish, bearish, and bearish all the way across the board tomorrow. And it does look like we have definitely seen a rollover, even the ultra fast sentiment indicator, which is at 51%. Now, what I want to look at here is I want to look at my trading signals. I want to look at these trading signals here because what you want to primarily focus on is the key three bear or the key three bull. You can see we are going to have 4 key three bears as of tomorrow, which is not a great signal. If we get a sell signal, which I don't think we've gotten a sell signal on Apple in a long time, we've had nothing but buy signals essentially. Um, that would be a very big change. We have not seen a sell signal on Apple on the daily in a very long time. Do not know what that would do to the market. That would definitely shake things up. I'm going to make a little bit longer video here just because I don't normally um, see this kind of a move in one of the bellwethers of the market. And right now, what it looks like, if I just go ahead, and I'm actually just going to update this live with you. The reason why I'm going to update this live is because I don't care if you know how to do this. I think everyone should learn. If you want to buy my course, read at the bottom of the New High newsletter. I show you how to build something very similar to this. I don't show you how to build the entire thing because people need to tell me that they want that. But this right here, the ability to just edit and manipulate, I show you exactly how to do this. And now what we can see is if we pull in today's data on the weekly for Apple, it's actually worse than it was. I actually want to see what the weekly looks like now. It's even worse. So that fills in that whole thing, and now that's today so far. So what you can see essentially is that's the move that we've seen down, which is just absolutely a terrifying look if you're really being honest with yourself. If we're going to look, we're going to see that we have changed on the 1 week. The 5 week has gone negative. That's a big deal for Apple. The volume, obviously, don't count this volume today because this is an individual day volume. That's going to be ignored, where these are all weeks of data. Like these are weeks of time. So we're going to be paying attention to the fact that the 5 week is currently negative, rolling 2 weeks in a row. That is very negative. We do not have a go short on the weekly for the short term, intermediate term, or longer term. We are still bullish on the short term, intermediate term, and longer term. Let's look at what we have in the overall falling bear. It looks like we do have a falling bear on the weekly, which would make perfect sense. We will look. We see a coming falling bear on the weekly since last week, now matching up with this week, depending on how we close. There's some concerning things that we look at in Apple right now. I'll be honest. And the reason why I say that is because I can see that even on the weekly, the volatility, what is happening in the weekly volatility? This is going to be a very long video just because this is probably the most important stock in the entire market, at least in the US market at the moment. There'll probably be other stocks that take its place, just like in all things. But for right now, this is the bellwether of the US economy. And we need to get an idea of where we are with this, or at least this bellwether, bellwether services economy, basically. What we can see, though, is volatility is definitely rolling over. This is the highest breakout of volatility going all the way back. This volatility goes all the way back to the end of 2022 or 2020. So you can see we got 2020, 2021, 2022. Things have changed because we are peaking completely in 2023. The correlation has been incredibly positive, and that's the thing. The correlation is still positive on the weekly, and the volatility is starting to roll over. Like this week of volatility, what you would need now is a crazy move in volatility during one of these days that just takes the price to like 200 bucks. Something that just breaks out above where we are with a crazy move of volatility, because the way that things are working right now, I have some concerns. I definitely have some concerns about Apple, and I think that what we could expect is like what the weekly is doing. The weekly is pulling the weekly volatility here. The weekly volatility here is pulling the daily volatility down. So the weekly has rolled over officially, and now it's pulling it down because that's how it slowly moves. It takes a couple of days to pull down a weekly bar. Now the correlation is already very high as the price volatility is falling on the weekly, and the same thing is now going to happen on the daily. And that, boys and girls, is how you get a derivative to pull something. It's how slowing down an acceleration also can change the speed, or reversing an acceleration can also change the speed. What you're seeing here in Apple is that the derivatives, the volatility, the price correlation, the weekly, like the things that are more important than the daily action are now driving what's happening on a daily from the market for Apple. It's an interesting thing to see from a mathematic perspective, or a stochastic perspective, or like a probability perspective, because it's just not something that we're expecting in the market at the moment. But I'm all down. I'm open for it. But tell me what you think in the comments below. Are you long or are you short? Do you like it? Do you love it? Do you even like these long reviews? And before you go, subscribe to the New High newsletter. We give you 21 stocks or 25 stocks in your inbox every single Sunday. Talk to you soon.